In the shadowed recesses of an English woodland, beneath the emerald canopy where ancient oak stands sentinel against the dawn, a most extraordinary deception is about to unfold. The morning air trembles with the chorus of awakening birds, wrens declaring their territories, robins heralding the sunrise, and somewhere in the distance, that haunting, hollow call that has echoed through these forests for millennia. Cuckoo! Cuckoo! But this is no innocent song of spring. This is the battle cry of nature's most accomplished deceiver, a master of evolutionary manipulation whose very existence challenges our most fundamental assumptions about parenthood, survival, and the bonds that bind the natural world together. Imagine, if you will, a creature so perfectly adapted to the art of deception that it has convinced entire species to abandon their own offspring in favour of raising its young. A being that practices infanticide within hours of birth, yet elicits nothing but tender care from its unwitting foster parents. This is the realm of the brood parasite, where evolutionary arms races span millennia, where the simple act of laying an egg becomes an exercise in biological espionage, and where the most fundamental instinct of all, to care for one's own young, becomes a weapon turned against itself. Today we venture into this twilight world of deception and counter-deception, where every nest tells a story of betrayal, and every egg holds the potential for either continuation or catastrophe. Welcome to the insane life cycle of the brood parasite. The master of deception, introducing the common cuckoo. To understand the breathtaking audacity of brood parasitism, we must first meet its most notorious practitioner, Cuculus canorus, the common cuckoo. Across the woodlands and meadows of Europe and Asia, this sleek, hawk-like bird has perfected what can only be described as the ultimate evolutionary con game, a strategy so successful that it has liberated the cuckoo entirely from the burden of parenthood, yet ensures its genetic legacy with ruthless efficiency. The common cuckoo stands as nature's testament to the power of specialization. Where other birds invest countless hours in nest construction, egg incubation, and chick rearing, the cuckoo has evolved to exploit the parental instincts of others. It is, in the words of behavioral ecologist Mark Hauber, essentially looking for foster parents. But these are foster parents who will never know they've been deceived until it's far too late. Picture, if you will, the female cuckoo as she surveys her domain during the critical breeding season. She's not searching for suitable nesting sites or gathering materials for construction. Instead, she's engaged in reconnaissance of the most sophisticated kind, surveillance operations that would impress any intelligence agency. Her target? The carefully constructed nests of smaller songbirds, each one a potential nursery for her offspring. The cuckoo's reproductive strategy represents one of evolution's most audacious gambles. By abandoning all pretense of conventional parenting, she has freed herself to focus entirely on the complex art of deception. A single female cuckoo may lay up to 25 eggs in a single breeding season, each one deposited in a different host nest, each one a testament to her mastery of biological espionage. But the cuckoo's success is not merely a matter of abandoning responsibility, it is the result of millions of years of evolutionary refinement, producing a creature whose every adaptation serves the singular purpose of deception. From the moment she emerges from her winter quarters in tropical Africa, having navigated thousands of miles guided by instincts we are only beginning to understand, the female cuckoo is a living weapon in an arms race that has shaped both predator and prey for countless generations. Consider the timing of her arrival. She returns to European breeding grounds precisely when her chosen hosts are entering their most vulnerable phase, the peak of their own reproductive cycles. This is no coincidence. The cuckoo's internal clock, regulated by photoperiod and hormonal cascades, has been fine-tuned over millennia to synchronize with the breeding patterns of her victims. She arrives not as a fellow member of the avian community, but as an invader whose very presence heralds a season of biological warfare. And what of her appearance? The cuckoo's resemblance to a sparrowhawk is no accident of evolution. This mimicry, known as aggressive mimicry, serves a dual purpose. It allows her to approach host nests without triggering immediate alarm, and more importantly, it can be weaponized to terrify potential hosts into fleeing their nests, leaving them vulnerable to invasion. Recent research has revealed that some brood parasites have evolved to look like predators specifically to scare a potential host bird, prompting it to fly off and leave the nest open to intruders. The stage is thus set for one of nature's most remarkable performances, a drama that unfolds in woodlands and meadows across continents, where the simple act of raising young becomes a battlefield of evolutionary strategy and counter-strategy, played out over timescales that dwarf human civilization itself. The art of surveillance, nest reconnaissance and strategic planning. In the pre-dawn darkness of an English spring morning, while the world still slumbers beneath a blanket of dew-kissed silence, the female cuckoo begins her most critical work. She's not merely wandering through the landscape, she is conducting surveillance operations of breathtaking sophistication, operations that require the patience of a seasoned intelligence operative and the precision of a master tactician. The cuckoo's reconnaissance begins weeks before she will lay her first egg. She must identify not just suitable nests, but nests at precisely the right stage of development. Too early, and the host may abandon the nest before completing its clutch. Too late, and the host's eggs will have too much of a developmental head start. The window of opportunity is measured not in days, but in hours, a margin of error that would challenge the most advanced surveillance technology. Watch as she moves through her territory, a shadow among shadows, utilizing every scrap of cover the landscape provides. Her approach to potential host nests is a masterclass in stealth operations. She maintains a careful distance, often observing from concealed perches hundreds of meters away, using her exceptional vision to monitor the comings and goings of her intended victims. The female cuckoo must learn the intimate details of each host pair's routine, when they depart to forage, how long they remain away, which parent is more vigilant, and crucially, at what time of day the nest is most likely to be undefended. This surveillance phase can last for weeks. The cuckoo is not merely watching, she is learning. Each host species has its own behavioral patterns, its own vulnerabilities, its own defensive strategies. Reed warblers, for instance, are known to be particularly aggressive in defending their nests, often mounting coordinated attacks against intruders. Meadow pipits, by contrast, rely more on concealment and distraction displays. The cuckoo must tailor her approach to each species, each pair, each individual nest. But the cuckoo's intelligence gathering extends far beyond simple behavioral observation. She must also assess the physical characteristics of each potential target. The architecture of the nest itself provides crucial information. The diameter of the entrance, the depth of the cup, the materials used in construction. All of these factors will influence her ability to access the nest quickly and deposit her egg without detection. Perhaps most remarkably, the cuckoo appears to maintain a mental map of her entire territory, tracking the progress of dozens of potential host nests simultaneously. She must remember not only the location of each nest, but its stage of development, the behavior patterns of its occupants, and the optimal timing for her invasion. This cognitive feat rivals the navigational abilities of migrating birds and suggests a level of spatial memory that we're only beginning to appreciate. The complexity of this surveillance operation becomes even more apparent when we consider that the cuckoo must synchronize her own reproductive physiology with that of her hosts. Her eggs must be ready for laying at precisely the moment when conditions are optimal for deception. This requires not just behavioral flexibility, but physiological coordination of extraordinary precision. Recent research has begun to reveal the neurological adaptations that make this possible. The cuckoo's brain shows enhanced development in regions associated with spatial memory and temporal processing, adaptations that likely evolved specifically to support her parasitic lifestyle. She is in essence a living surveillance system, her entire nervous system optimized for the gathering and processing of intelligence. As the surveillance phase reaches its climax, the female cuckoo faces perhaps her greatest challenge, the final approach. She must time her arrival at the host nest with split-second precision, taking advantage of the brief window when the nest is undefended. This moment of truth will determine whether months of preparation culminate in success or catastrophic failure. The perfect crime, stealth egg-laying and biological espionage. The moment has arrived. After weeks of meticulous surveillance, the female cuckoo initiates what can only be described as the perfect crime, a feat of biological espionage so refined that it unfolds in the space of mere seconds, yet represents the culmination of millions of years of evolutionary strategy. Picture the scene: a reed warbler's nest, woven with extraordinary craftsmanship among the swaying stems of a marshy reed bed. The nest's owners have departed for their morning forage, their departure carefully noted by the cuckoo's unblinking surveillance. She knows she has perhaps 10 minutes, more likely 5, before their return. In this brief window, she must execute a plan that requires the precision of a surgeon, the stealth of a ghost, and the timing of a Swiss chronometer. The cuckoo's approach to the nest is a marvel of controlled athleticism. Despite her larger size, she's roughly twice the weight of her reed warbler hosts. She moves with liquid grace, her every movement calculated to avoid the slightest disturbance that might alert neighbouring birds or leave evidence of her presence. Her feet, evolved for gripping rather than the delicate perching required for this operation, must navigate the flexible reed stems without causing them to sway in telltale patterns. But the true genius of the cuckoo's strategy becomes apparent in the seconds that follow her arrival at the nest. In one fluid motion, she must accomplish 3 seemingly impossible tasks: remove one of the host's eggs, deposit her own egg in its place, and disappear without leaving any trace of her intrusion. The entire operation, from landing to departure, takes less than 10 seconds, a duration so brief that even if the host parents were to return unexpectedly, they would likely dismiss any glimpse of the intruder as a figment of their imagination. The egg removal process itself is a study in evolutionary precision. Using her bill, the cuckoo carefully extracts one of the host's eggs, usually the most recently laid, as it will be the least developed and therefore the least likely to be missed. This egg is not discarded carelessly, but removed entirely from the vicinity of the nest. Some researchers have observed the cuckoos carrying host eggs considerable distances before consuming them, ensuring that no physical evidence remains that might alert the host to the substitution. The deposition of her own egg requires even greater precision. The cuckoo must position herself at exactly the right angle to the nest, accounting for its depth, the position of the remaining eggs, and the need to place her egg in a location where it will receive optimal incubation conditions. Her egg, preformed and ready for immediate laying, must be deposited with the gentleness of a master jeweller setting a precious stone. What makes this feat even more extraordinary is the physiological control it requires. Unlike most birds, which lay their eggs in the early morning hours when hormone levels naturally peak, the cuckoo must be able to control the timing of oviposition with surgical precision. She has evolved the ability to retain a fully formed egg within her reproductive tract for extended periods, releasing it only when conditions are optimal. This adaptation, known as egg retention, allows her to synchronize her laying with the precise moment of opportunity. The cuckoo's post-deposition behavior is equally remarkable. She must resist the natural urge to inspect her work or linger near the nest. Instead, she vanishes as quickly and silently as she arrived, often flying to a distant perch where she can observe the host's return without attracting suspicion. Her departure trajectory is carefully calculated to avoid detection by neighbouring birds, whose alarm calls might alert the returning host to the presence of an intruder. But perhaps the most astonishing aspect of this biological heist is its repeatability. A single female cuckoo may execute this complex operation 20 or more times in a single breeding season, each time adapting her technique to the specific challenges presented by different host species, different nest architectures, and different environmental conditions. She is, in effect, a master criminal whose expertise only grows with experience. The success of this strategy depends not just on the cuckoo's own adaptations, but on her ability to exploit the fundamental assumptions that govern host behavior. Reed warblers, like most songbirds, have evolved to recognize and respond to threats that they can see coming, predators that approach visibly, competitors that challenge them directly. They are ill-equipped to detect a threat that operates with such speed and stealth that it leaves no trace of its presence save for a subtle alteration in the contents of their nest. Masters of mimicry, the science of egg deception. Within the confines of a reed warbler's nest, nestled among 3 olive-green eggs marked with delicate brown speckles, lies what appears to be a perfect match. Another egg, slightly larger perhaps, but bearing the same coloration, the same pattern of markings, the same subtle sheen. Yet this egg is an imposter, a masterpiece of evolutionary forgery that represents one of the most sophisticated examples of mimicry in the natural world. The cuckoo's mastery of egg mimicry extends far beyond simple colour matching. Each female cuckoo is, in essence, a specialised forger, her eggs precisely calibrated to deceive a specific host species. This specialization is so refined that ornithologists can often identify which host species a cuckoo parasitizes simply by examining her eggs. The mimicry encompasses not just pigmentation, but size, shape, shell texture, and even the subtle patterns of speckles and blotches that serve as each species' unique identifier. This precision in mimicry did not arise by chance. It is the product of an evolutionary arms race that has been escalating for millions of years, with each improvement in cuckoo egg deception matched by corresponding advances in host recognition abilities. The relationship between brood parasites and their hosts, as noted in recent research, provides one of the best model systems for coevolution. The genetic basis of this mimicry is itself a marvel of evolutionary engineering. Female cuckoos carry genetic programs that can produce eggs virtually indistinguishable from those of their chosen hosts. These programs are so precisely calibrated that cuckoo eggs often match their hosts more closely than the host's own eggs match each other. In some cases, cuckoo eggs exhibit less variation in appearance than the host clutch they infiltrate, a level of standardization that speaks to the intense selective pressure for perfect mimicry. But the cuckoo's deceptive arsenal extends beyond visual mimicry. Research has revealed that some cuckoo eggs also mimic the chemical signatures of host eggs, matching not just their appearance but their scent, an adaptation that helps them evade detection by hosts that may rely on olfactory cues to identify foreign eggs. This chemical mimicry represents yet another layer in the cuckoo's comprehensive strategy of deception. The timing of egg laying provides another dimension of mimicry. Cuckoos have evolved to lay their eggs at precisely the stage when host clutches are most vulnerable to infiltration. Too early, and the host may abandon the nest as incomplete. Too late, and the developmental head start of the host eggs may prove insurmountable. The cuckoo must therefore synchronize her reproductive cycle not just with the breeding season of her hosts, but with the specific laying patterns of individual pairs. The sophistication of this timing becomes apparent when we consider that different host species have different laying schedules. Reed warblers typically lay 1 egg per day until their clutch of 3 to 5 eggs is complete. Meadow pipits follow a similar pattern, but with slightly different timing. Dunnocks may pause between eggs. The female cuckoo must not only know these species-specific patterns, but adapt her own laying schedule to match them precisely. Perhaps most remarkably, recent research has begun to reveal that some cuckoo populations are becoming increasingly specialized, with different lineages evolving to parasitize specific host species. This specialization has proceeded to the point where different cuckoo races can be identified by their egg characteristics, each race representing a distinct evolutionary trajectory shaped by the defensive adaptations of their particular hosts. The strategy of egg mimicry also involves sophisticated behavioral adaptations. The cuckoo must not only produce a convincing forgery, but must also deposit it in a manner that maintains the illusion. She must match the orientation of the host eggs, their positioning within the nest, and even their relative spacing. Any deviation from the normal pattern might trigger suspicion in the returning hosts. This mimicry extends to the shell thickness and structure of cuckoo eggs. Host species that have evolved to eject foreign eggs by puncturing them have inadvertently selected for cuckoos with thicker, more resistant eggshells. Conversely, hosts that eject eggs by grasping them have selected for cuckoo eggs that are more difficult to grip. The result is a precise calibration of egg structure to match the defensive capabilities of each host species. The evolutionary investment in egg mimicry reflects the critical importance of this deception to the cuckoo's reproductive success. A single detection event can result not just in the loss of that particular egg, but in the host's increased vigilance that may affect future parasitism attempts. The stakes could not be higher, and the cuckoo's eggs represent her life's work, each one a carefully crafted deception upon which her genetic legacy depends. The intruder emerges, hatching and the instinct to kill. After 12 days of incubation by unwitting foster parents, the shell of the cuckoo egg begins to show the first hairline cracks of impending emergence. What unfolds over the next 24 hours represents one of nature's most chilling displays of evolutionary programming, a sequence of behaviors so precisely choreographed, so ruthlessly efficient, that it seems to blur the line between instinct and malevolence. The cuckoo chick emerges into the world as a creature of contradictions. Barely larger than a human thumb, naked, blind, and helpless, it appears to be the epitome of vulnerability. Yet within its tiny frame lies a genetic program of such devastating effectiveness that it will, within hours of hatching, commit acts that would be considered monstrous if performed by any conscious agent. The critical advantage that sets the stage for the cuckoo's success lies in its accelerated development. While still in the egg, the cuckoo embryo develops at a pace that exceeds that of its host siblings. This head start, usually amounting to just a day or two, proves decisive in the life or death struggle that will define the first days of its existence. As the newly hatched cuckoo takes its first breaths, it begins to exhibit behaviours that seem to defy everything we understand about newborn helplessness. Despite being blind and barely able to lift its own head, the cuckoo chick possesses what can only be described as an innate compulsion, an irresistible drive to eliminate any competition within the nest. The mechanics of this elimination are as precise as they are disturbing. The cuckoo chick, using a specialised depression in its back known as the ejection hollow, begins the systematic removal of every other egg and chick from the nest. Working with the methodical persistence of a machine, it manoeuvres each competitor to the edge of the nest and, with a powerful thrust of its surprisingly strong legs, hurls them into the void below. This behaviour, known as eviction or ejection, typically occurs within the first few days after hatching, while the cuckoo chick is still blind and appears completely helpless in every other regard. The contrast is profound. A creature that cannot see, cannot properly coordinate its movements, and depends entirely on its foster parents for warmth and food, yet possesses the strength and determination to murder its nestmates with ruthless efficiency. The evolutionary programming that drives this behaviour operates at a level that bypasses conscious thought entirely. The cuckoo chick does not learn to evict. It simply does so, driven by genetic instructions that have been refined over millions of years. The ejection hollow on its back is a specialised anatomical feature that exists solely to facilitate this infanticide, a structure so perfectly adapted to its grim purpose that it begins to fade once the eviction period ends. Recent research has revealed the neurological basis of this behaviour, showing that the cuckoo's brain is pre-wired with motor patterns that facilitate eviction. The chick's nervous system contains what researchers describe as fixed action patterns, behavioural programs that, once triggered, run to completion regardless of external conditions. The sight or touch of another egg or chick in the nest serves as the trigger for these programs, initiating a sequence of movements that will not cease until the nest contains only the cuckoo. The physical demands of eviction are extraordinary. Each egg or chick must be manoeuvred into position, lifted onto the cuckoo's back, and then expelled with sufficient force to clear the rim of the nest. For a creature that weighs mere grams and cannot yet open its eyes, this represents a feat of strength and coordination that seems to violate the laws of physics. Yet the cuckoo accomplishes this through a combination of specialized anatomy and behavioral programming that represents millions of years of evolutionary refinement. The elimination of nestmates serves multiple purposes beyond simply reducing competition for food. By becoming the sole occupant of the nest, the cuckoo eliminates any possibility that the host parents might notice the difference between their own offspring and the imposter they are raising. A nest containing both cuckoo and host chicks would present obvious contrasts in size, appearance, and behaviour that might alert even the most gullible foster parents to the deception. The timing of eviction also ensures that the cuckoo's development proceeds without interference. Host chicks that remain in the nest might compete not just for food, but for the attention and warmth provided by the parents. By eliminating this competition early, the cuckoo ensures that it receives the full investment of parental care that would otherwise be divided among multiple offspring. Perhaps most remarkably, the eviction behaviour appears to be self-limiting. Once the nest is cleared of competitors, the cuckoo's drive to eject diminishes rapidly. The specialised anatomy that facilitates eviction, the hollow on the back, the enhanced leg strength, begins to change as the chick develops. It is as if evolution has equipped the cuckoo with a temporary weapon system that activates only when needed and then safely deactivates once its purpose has been served. The host parents, returning to their nest to find only a single oversized chick, where once there had been a full clutch, face a puzzle that their evolutionary programming is ill-equipped to solve. Their own offspring have vanished without trace, leaving behind only this strange, demanding creature that bears little resemblance to what they expect their children to look like. Yet the parental instincts that have served their species for millions of years compel them to continue caring for the intruder. setting the stage for one of nature's most poignant displays of misdirected devotion. The Unwitting Foster Parents, a study in misdirected care. In the aftermath of the cuckoo's systematic elimination of their own offspring, the host parents return to what should be a scene of devastating loss. Their carefully constructed nest, once alive with the promise of multiple hungry mouths to feed, now contains only a single, oversized chick that bears little resemblance to their own species. Yet what unfolds in the days that follow represents one of the most profound examples of misdirected parental care in the natural world, a testament to the power of instinct even when that instinct has been weaponized against its possessors. The first encounters between foster parents and their grotesquely oversized offspring should, by all logical reasoning, trigger immediate rejection. The size differential alone is startling. A reed warbler weighs approximately 10 grams, while the cuckoo chick it is now caring for will eventually reach 30 grams or more. Imagine the cognitive dissonance of a creature looking down at a child that is already approaching its own size and will soon dwarf it entirely. Yet the host parents not only accept this biological impossibility, they embrace it with the full intensity of their parental devotion. The evolutionary programming that compels them to feed gaping mouths and respond to begging calls proves stronger than any rational assessment of the situation. The cuckoo chick, despite its alien appearance, triggers all the correct responses from its foster parents through a combination of evolved manipulation strategies and the host's own hardwired parental instincts. The begging display of the young cuckoo is itself a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Its gape, the bright interior of its mouth that serves as a feeding target for parents, is often more vibrant and compelling than that of the host species' own young. The cuckoo's calls, too, have evolved to trigger maximum response from foster parents, often exceeding in intensity and frequency the vocalizations that would be produced by a normal brood of host chicks. Perhaps most remarkably, research has shown that some cuckoo chicks produce calls that mimic not just one, but multiple host offspring, creating the acoustic illusion of a full brood. This acoustic mimicry represents yet another layer in the cuckoo's deceptive arsenal, ensuring that the foster parents invest the full intensity of care that they would normally distribute among several offspring. The foster parents find themselves trapped in an escalating cycle of investment and exhaustion. The cuckoo chick's appetite is voracious, requiring food deliveries at a rate that would challenge the most dedicated biological parents. Reed warbler parents may deliver food to their nest up to 100 times per day, each trip involving the capture and transport of insects, caterpillars, and other small prey. For a cuckoo chick, these deliveries must be even more frequent and substantial to meet its accelerated growth requirements. Watching these feeding sessions, one cannot help but be struck by the profound asymmetry of the relationship. The foster parents, barely larger than the creature they are feeding, approach their nest with the measured precision of experienced aviators, carrying food loads that may represent significant portions of their own body weight. The cuckoo chick, meanwhile, dominates the nest like a tyrant, its massive gape demanding immediate attention, its calls drowning out any other sounds in the vicinity. The physical toll of this misdirected care is extraordinary. Host parents feeding a cuckoo chick show signs of increased stress, accelerated aging, and reduced survival rates compared to those raising their own young. They are quite literally working themselves to death to support a genetic imposter that will provide no evolutionary benefit to their lineage. It is parenthood as a form of evolutionary suicide. Yet the foster parents display remarkable adaptability in meeting their offspring's demands. They modify their foraging behavior, seeking out larger prey items to satisfy the cuckoo's appetite. They extend their feeding territories, venturing further from the nest to find sufficient food. Some species even alter their feeding schedules, working longer hours to meet the relentless demands of their oversized charge. The cuckoo chick's growth rate is nothing short of phenomenal. Within days of hatching, it begins to exceed the size of its foster parents. Within weeks, it may be twice their size, yet it continues to behave like a helpless dependent, demanding food with the persistence of a creature that has never known want. Its growth is so rapid that it often outgrows the nest itself, yet it continues to occupy the structure, its bulk spilling over the edges in a display that would be comical if it were not so tragic. The host parent's response to this biological impossibility reveals the profound power of evolutionary programming. Despite the obvious mismatch between their expectations and reality, despite the enormous cost in energy and resources, despite the fact that their offspring bears no resemblance to their own species, they continue to feed and care for the cuckoo with unwavering dedication. Their behavior represents instinct triumphant over reason, parental care persisting even when it has been turned into a weapon against them. As the cuckoo approaches fledging, the disparity becomes even more pronounced. The host parents may be seen feeding a creature that literally dwarfs them, their tiny forms darting back and forth like servants attending to a giant. The cuckoo, meanwhile, prepares for independence, its body packed with the energy and resources that will carry it through its first migration to African wintering grounds, a journey that its foster parents, exhausted by their misdirected efforts, may never have the strength to complete themselves. The evolutionary arms race, adaptation and counter-adaptation. In the ancient battlefields of evolutionary time, where victories and defeats are measured not in seasons but in millennia, few conflicts have raged with the intensity and sophistication of the arms race between brood parasites and their hosts. This is warfare conducted at the most fundamental level of existence, a struggle that has shaped the very essence of both predator and prey, driving innovations in deception and detection that rival the most advanced technologies of human civilization. The relationship between cuckoos and their hosts exemplifies what biologists call a coevolutionary arms race, a perpetual cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation, where each evolutionary advance by one species drives corresponding changes in the other. As recent research has revealed, cuckoos should evolve eggs that more closely match those of their hosts, while the hosts should evolve keener senses to discriminate between their own eggs and a cuckoo's. This arms race operates on multiple fronts simultaneously. As cuckoo eggs become increasingly sophisticated in their mimicry, host species evolve enhanced recognition abilities that allow them to detect even subtle deviations from their own egg patterns. Some host species have developed what researchers call egg signature systems, unique patterns of coloration and markings that function like biological fingerprints, making forgery increasingly difficult for would-be parasites. The defensive adaptations evolved by hosts are remarkable in their sophistication and diversity. Some species have developed the ability to count their eggs, rejecting clutches that contain more eggs than they remember laying. Others have evolved enhanced pattern recognition, enabling them to detect minute differences in egg coloration or marking patterns that might indicate the presence of a cuckoo egg. Still others have adopted behavioral strategies, such as increased nest vigilance or the development of neighborhood watch systems, where multiple pairs cooperate to detect and mob potential parasites. Perhaps most dramatically, some host species have evolved the ability to recognize and eject foreign eggs from their nests entirely. This behavior, known as egg rejection, represents one of the most direct and effective defenses against brood parasitism. However, it comes with significant risks. Host species that eject foreign eggs must be extremely accurate in their recognition abilities, as mistakenly ejecting one of their own eggs represents a devastating reproductive loss. The evolution of egg ejection has, in turn, driven counter-adaptations in cuckoos. Some cuckoo populations have evolved thicker eggshells that make ejection more difficult for hosts. Others have developed eggs that are more difficult to grasp and remove from the nest. In some cases, the evolutionary pressure has been so intense that cuckoo eggs have evolved to be virtually indistinguishable from host eggs, even under close scientific examination. But the arms race extends far beyond the simple mechanics of egg laying and recognition. Some host species have evolved temporal defenses, altering their breeding schedules to avoid the period when cuckoos are most active. Others have adopted spatial strategies, choosing nest sites that are difficult for cuckoos to access or locate. These adaptations force cuckoos to evolve corresponding counter-strategies, creating a complex web of action and reaction that plays out across multiple dimensions of behavior and ecology. Recent research has revealed that this coevolutionary process may actually be driving speciation, the formation of new species, in both cuckoos and their hosts. As noted in groundbreaking research published in Science, coevolution with hosts underpins speciation in brood parasitic cuckoos. Different cuckoo populations, specializing on different host species, are becoming increasingly distinct from one another, potentially leading to the formation of separate species over evolutionary time. The intensity of this arms race is perhaps best illustrated by examining host species that have recently come into contact with cuckoos. These naive hosts, lacking evolutionary experience with brood parasites, often show little ability to defend themselves against cuckoo infiltration. However, over time, populations exposed to parasitism begin to evolve defensive strategies, demonstrating the rapid pace at which evolution can operate when selective pressures are intense. Conversely, some host species appear to have won their evolutionary arms race with cuckoos by evolving defenses so effective that parasitism is no longer viable. These species, once common cuckoo hosts, are now rarely parasitized, forcing cuckoos to focus their attention on more vulnerable targets. This dynamic creates a constantly shifting landscape of predator-prey relationships, with cuckoos continually probing for new vulnerabilities, while hosts evolve increasingly sophisticated defenses. The arms race also involves what researchers call evolutionary traps, situations where rapid environmental change disrupts the delicate balance between parasite and host. Climate change, habitat fragmentation, and other human-induced modifications to the environment can alter the timing of breeding seasons, the availability of food resources, or the distribution of host species, potentially giving one side or the other a temporary advantage in the ongoing conflict. Understanding these evolutionary dynamics is crucial for conservation efforts. As environmental conditions continue to change, the carefully balanced relationships between cuckoos and their hosts may be disrupted, potentially leading to the decline or extinction of species that have become too specialized in their co-evolutionary adaptations. The loss of any species in this complex web of relationships could have cascading effects throughout the ecosystem. The cuckoo-host arms race also provides insights into the fundamental mechanisms of evolution itself. By studying how these species respond to intense selective pressure, researchers gain valuable understanding of the processes that drive biodiversity, adaptation, and speciation. These insights have applications far beyond ornithology, informing our understanding of evolution in all its forms. Closing. The eternal dance of deception. As the sun sets over the English countryside where our journey began, casting long shadows through the ancient oaks that have witnessed countless generations of this evolutionary drama, we are left to contemplate the profound implications of what we have discovered. The story of the brood parasite is, ultimately, a story about the creative power of evolution itself, its ability to craft solutions to seemingly impossible problems, to blur the lines between cooperation and exploitation, and to create beauty from the most unlikely sources. In the cuckoo's hollow call echoing through the twilight, we hear not just the voice of a single species, but the culmination of an evolutionary epic that spans millions of years. Every note carries within it the weight of countless generations, each one a link in an unbroken chain of deception and adaptation that stretches back to the very origins of brood parasitism itself. The cuckoo challenges our most fundamental assumptions about nature. In a world where we expect parents to care for their young, predators to hunt their prey, and species to compete openly for resources, the cuckoo has evolved to exploit the very foundations of reproductive biology. It has turned parenthood into a weapon, transformed nurturing into manipulation, and created one of the most sophisticated systems of biological deception known to science. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this story is not the cuckoo's success, but the resilience of the entire system. Despite millions of years of evolutionary pressure, despite the devastating effectiveness of the cuckoo's strategy, the dance continues. Host species persist, adapt, and evolve new defenses. Cuckoos respond with ever more sophisticated deceptions. The balance shifts but never breaks, creating a dynamic equilibrium that has persisted through ice ages, climate changes, and mass extinctions. This resilience offers both hope and a warning for our current age. The relationships we have explored today, complex, beautiful, and seemingly impossible, remind us that nature is far more sophisticated and interconnected than we often imagine. They also remind us that the systems we take for granted can be more fragile than they appear, dependent on precise conditions and delicate balances that can be disrupted by forces beyond their evolutionary experience. In the end, the story of the brood parasite is our story as well. It speaks to the power of adaptation, the importance of diversity, and the endless creativity of life itself. As we face our own challenges in a rapidly changing world, we might do well to remember the lessons of the cuckoo, that survival often requires not just strength or speed, but intelligence, flexibility, and the ability to see opportunities where others see only obstacles, the ancient call of the cuckoo will continue to echo through our woodlands, carrying with it the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of evolution. In that call, we hear both the promise and the peril of life on Earth, a reminder that in nature, as in all things, the most profound truths are often hidden in the most unexpected places.